Hi, my name is Aksik, aka Annika. Welcome to my channel. Very happy to see you here, and here we mostly talk about adult coloring, art materials, coloring books, whatever pops into my mind as I am coloring. Anyways, today we are talking about this little set of acrylic markers. They were sent to me by Ohuhu for kind of a review and comparison and what I think of them. And I obviously, want to get an idea, how they compare to other acrylic markers, because I have a fair bit of them. I have these ones, they're basically white labeled ones. Several companies sell these. I call them silver barrel ones. Several companies sell these under their name. I think Woomer might be one of them. They're widely available on Amazon and Temu and Shein and wherever, in smaller sets and bigger sets. These are Languo ones that so far have been my favorites. They have that yeah, that ball at the end actually moves. You can kind of do the fidget, use it as a fidget toy. But that's not important. I like that they are fairly opaque, and of the ones I have, possibly kind of have the least shiny finish. And then I don't pull out the full thing. I have a big set of GuangNa ones. I think my set is 120 of them. But basically, that's what the barrel looks like. They're also nice and opaque. And then I have these ones, which I bought to try. I have heard that, or read on some accounts, that these are by GuangNa also, but they have a different name on them, which I don't know how to read, because is that Huele? Is that Dele? No idea. It kind of looks more like Dele, but doesn't really make sense as a word. So yeah, strictly my problem that they confuse me that much, the name. But these ones have some nice colors that are hard to find in some other sets, but they are, I find, the least opaque of the ones I have. And also but they're nice for using kind of for washes and for kind of just coloring and creating layers, because they do have some interesting colors. And they all have this feeding system, so like that. It's called on the websites usually like direct ink or liquid ink, which is kind of oxymoron, liquid ink. But yeah, there are ink blocks, so it kind of, yeah, okay, it does make somewhat sense. So let's get to this one. So this is a 48 set. Comes in beautiful case like this, which is one of the things that is actually very attractive about it, because it's kind of small, it's contained. You can see it's about the size of my hand. You can see the size of this. It's really nice and compact, small set. Obviously, 48 colors isn't a huge amount of colors, so we'll have a look at the swatches in a minute. I decided not to do swatching on the camera, not to let this video get overly long, but I will show you the swatches. Basically, it comes with, with a little manual as well, with warnings, which, I'm not going to read to you at the moment, but I will tell you that, what they tell you to do is, before using, give it, a good shake, and that goes for absolutely all of markers with that feeding system, that before every use, not just first use, before every use, you give them a good shake, and that firstly mixes, you know, if there's anything, any ink that has kind of separated in the barrel, it mixes it up nicely, and it also increases the flow into the brush, so you know the marker is nice and wet. And also if you're doing something a bigger area and you feel the marker, you know, ink flow can't keep up with you when it's getting dry, all you need to do is just give it a good shake and you get more juicy flow again. Just make sure that you do that shake over a bin or a piece of scrap paper, not over the work, not over the, you know, page or whatever you're working with, because it can splatter slightly. Anyways, it also has that little printed color chart. These, you know, they're somewhat useful, but they never really actually tell you about the reality of the colors. And I have also swatched them out. So these came with the pack, you know, on black paper and on white paper. Now, what do we think of the color choices? There is pretty decent balance of colors. As usual, in many sets, I find the hard to find thing is kind of beautiful, warmish, true red. This one, although it looks on the camera pretty, you know, red, it leans towards the pink, like they mostly do for some reason. It's very hard to find a true red acrylic marker. Languo has some, I think. Let me see. I think I found a couple pretty decent reds. I find this, you know, nice dark red in those silver barrel ones. And Languo has a beautiful, you can't really see, it kind of looks darker than it is on the camera here, especially with the lights like this, but it is, you know, trust me, it's, you know, beautiful, vibrant, true red, without, you know, pink leanings. Most of the other ones do tend to have pink leanings. And there's another one in Languo sets, it's in fiery oranges and reds, and that is also, doesn't look like, it leans on the camera once again more into orange, but in real life it is kind of, it's a beautiful true red, but is leaning towards vermilion, you know, but, you know, beautiful reds, both of them. But they're hard to find in acrylic markers. That was a side tangent now. So in this set also, there's no that type of a true red, but it's not a surprise to me. And also you could add, you know, if you're mixing things anyway, or if you're using them as washes, you can add tiny bit, and I mean tiny bit of yellowish to it, and you probably get kind of a truer red. Other than that, I'm pretty impressed that they have included for each color a proper dark as well. So you have a really dark, deep, almost brownish red. That's now on warmer side. They have nice dark green here. And they have a nice, well, this blue I would have preferred to get a step darker. I would have preferred to have something like indigo, you know, truly dark, but you know, it's all right, it's close enough. There's nice dark violet here, and in browns also, you know, this brown is pretty decently dark, you know, and then you obviously have nice dark gray here as well. Now, as for, and you can also see, you know, opaqueness wise, on black you can kind of see that they are pretty decently opaque. I'm in the middle of another opaqueness test, which I'm going to show you in a second, or not second. It's really going to be a bit longer than that. But you can see, you know, they look nice and bright on black. On white, you can actually see better. I deliberately, when I was putting them down, I went over the lines as well of those little squares to see how opaque they went down. And as usual, in pretty much every single set, there's some of them are more opaque, some of them are less opaque. And often it seems to be that yellows tend to be, you know, the least opaque ones. It's hard to get the very opaque yellows. And also pinks tend to be less opaque side. Other than that, you know, pretty decent color palette. You could do a lot. Although to me, for example, these greens, I would have preferred to have some more natural, more olivey greens. Those three greens here are very similar. So it kind of feels like a waste. I would have strongly preferred to have some, you know, maybe one of these colors, which would go well with this one, you know, as a lighter color. And then, you know, have at the end here kind of a more kind of a bog or olive greens, more muted greens. They're all very kind of a harsh and very kind of a spring colors. You can of course mix them, but you know that takes a lot more, you know, work and hassle. So off the marker you don't have kind of olive greens. Now the marker itself, this is the body. One thing I have to say now about them that maybe you have, but I have not seen, like often these markers, as I said about those silver label ones, silver barrel ones, sorry, that many companies sell them under their name. You know, they just package them with the brand name and that's it. I have not seen any other brands selling the markers with exactly the same body. They are different body-wise, but the feeding system is, of course, you know, the same. That's, you know, obviously some sort of a... And I have to say that I do like this feeding system. These markers are obviously one of the juiciest ones around, and because you can get quite a lot of paint out of it at the same time, if you keep it juicy and put it down gently, you can get very nice opaque results that your regular kind of foam core acrylic markers won't give you. But of course they won't compete with if you are actually using acrylic paint from the bottle or from the jar or whatever tube. Yeah, they won't be as opaque. By their nature, they have to be pretty liquid to work, you know, to be able to flow through this feeding system. So obviously they can't be as opaque, but usually with a couple of layers you get pretty decent and opaque-ish results. So they are pretty, they are nice to hold. I like that, you know, there is the ink window, which quite a lot of them do have, but quite a lot of them don't. For example, like GuangNa ones have also ink window, not as visible because of the black body and the black, this one has black ink as well, but there is an ink window here. Languo ones don't have ink window. So, you know, when it's empty, you'll know when it's empty. And these silver ones don't exactly have a long window, but they have transparent bits that you see the ink through. And those stars here on the body are also transparent. So you can see ink through it, but it doesn't really tell you much about ink level. Which, to be honest, I don't really measure through that window anyway, because most of the time the ink gets stuck to that window anyway, so you can't really tell, you know, what the actual level is, because the whole window is covered with paint anyway. But yeah, they are, you know, different bodies, so I don't know if that body is only now something that Ohuhu is offering, or, you know, producing, or some, you know, manufacturing, or are there any other sets with the same body around? I genuinely do not know, but I have not seen that specific marker body anywhere else. So, but that's not really important to know what the body looks like. Important is that that how they work, you know, how opaque is the ink, or how juicy they are, and so on. And you know, here just you see how they come. I put the swatch shots back in. This is how they look like, and they are genuinely, you know, as visual as a set. The pleasant, the case looks nice quality. It has that smooth, lovely. It's nice to touch. And also what I like about it, well, this now depends on, you know, who is buying it and what they're using it for, but it's 48 set, but of these 48, 3 are whites and 3 are blacks, which can be either a good or bad thing depending on, you know, how you're using them. If you are kind of mixing a lot of colors, or if you are, you know, creating lightened up bits on your pages, or using that to cover up lines or whatnot, then 3 whites is very welcome. Or in the same way, you know, if you're creating, if you like to create like black backgrounds or stuff like this, those 3 blacks can be very welcome. If you don't, then essentially 4 colors are wasted. You know, 4 places that could have colors, you know, extra colors are wasted. But life has shown that, you know, in any acrylic set, the paint you use most, or the paints you use most, are white and black, if you treat them as if they're paints just in pen form. You know, you might treat them differently, in which case it might annoy you that there's, you know, 4 essentially wasted spaces here. But yeah, they are nice. What I like about them was, just a second, I did try them slightly, but we'll do a little bit of coloring in this video as well. What I do like is how they go down. So as usual, you give them a good shake, and I mean good shake. And if you are starting to use the set, if you're planning to just use the set, and you know, you're planning to really work with it for a while, a good idea to do is just to take the whole package and give it a good shake. You know, extensive shake like this. So you have to do less shaking individually. You still have to kind of do a little bit, you know, a couple of shakes for individual ones, but that kind of loosens the ball bearing, especially if they've been sitting for a little while. So anyways, now let's give that a little bit of a shake. And I like that, as at least, you know, when they come, they are super wet, you know, they're very juicy. Why I like that is that if the marker is that juicy, it's very easy to wash out. The juicier the marker, the easier it is to wash out, and you don't need to rush as badly with washing it out as you do with the markers that are on a drier side or aren't as wet as this. I don't know if you can see if I'm moving them like this. You know how, if I just put them down, you know how nice and juicy they are. Now, of course, at the same time, you do have to be, you know, if the marker or if the pens are so wet as these are, just make sure that you give them time to dry before you close the book you're working in, because obviously they also take a tiny bit longer to dry. And you can actually mess up your work by just kind of forgetting about it and closing it, and then you have smears all over the page next to it. Ask me how I know. Not with these ones. I have done it, you know, and I closed the books too early and had pages stuck to each other and stuff like this, you know, as normal life. Okay, so I wanted to show you one thing now. This is from old comparison, and I did, you know, opaqueness comparison, and I did, these are now Huele markers, or Dele, I don't know how to pronounce them, so they look like this, and this is the name, Dele, Huele, I genuinely don't know. Nobody has told me. I think here is actually, it might be, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 layers, but I had real trouble getting nice and opaque result. I think I actually put eventually 3 layers down to get it more or less opaque. But I do like that, you know, up until the last layer, it was fairly matte. So if you need to put a little bit of pencil on top, these ones are a nice choice. Also, as I said, good colors. If you know, see them, there's some sets that have, like, for example, these, I like those kind of olivey, warm, very warm greens, like a very autumnal palette. Love these, and they are actually, you know, fairly tricky to find in other sets, and I like this set specifically that contains, you know, that range. Then this one here, the sky, has been done with the silver barrel markers. And the funny bit about these ones was that when I, you know, with the first layer, when I put them down, I thought these were going to be crash and burn, that it was going to be really patchy, because first layer went down super patchy, and I thought they're going to be the worst ones. And then I put second layer on top, and I got beautiful opaque result, which isn't overly shiny. It has a little bit of a shine, but it isn't overly shiny. So it actually gave me really nice result. And here is the GuangNa. So these are that one. And this one also has 2 layers. It's very opaque, you know, after 2 layers, you can't see anything through it. But it also has the highest shine, if you can see it, after 2 layers. First layer, you could, you know, if you just put 1 layer down, wasn't as shiny as that, and you could still get some pencil on top. On this, I wouldn't try to go near it with any pencils. It's quite shiny. And this here, this background here is done with Languo. These markers, and 2 layers. And this is kind of my favorite finish. It is not as opaque after 2 layers, although, you know, I don't know, but this area seems like it's not as opaque, but I might have been just a bit more sloppy with the second layer. You know, sometimes you go too fast and then things get streakier. But I like that it's not as shiny. Can you see? No, if you look them next to each other, GuangNa, Languo. To me, you know, I prefer that slightly. It's still satiny, you know, it's still not, you know, totally matte or anything, but it has less of a sheen than GuangNa. And now I'm gonna show you this little book, a beautiful book that I got from Michelle. And I started doing this background here. I decided to kind of put black background pretty much everywhere, and I'm going to show you the first layer, how I'm putting it down, some little snippets. Here I am working in kind of a small tight areas, and you can see yourself how juicy the marker is going down. You really don't need 2 layers if you work in small areas like this.
Absolutely, you can get away with one layer, especially with darker colors. Lighter colors can be a bit more challenging actually to get down opaque, so you often need to put down more layers with these. And now I'm also showing when I'm working now in a bigger area where you kind of work faster and therefore the marker can't keep up with the ink flow. And you can see how the areas where the ink is overlapping the other areas, you get kind of textural and finish differences. You can see kind of the streakiness of the finish. This can be fixed afterwards with a second layer, but I'll talk about that in more detail shortly.
And the results are okay, as I've explained. If you go in small areas, you by necessity go slower. And as you go slower, the marker gives out more ink more evenly, and you get pretty much opaque results on a first layer. You don't, if you work in tight areas like this, you usually don't need 2 layers. The moment you go into the bigger area like this, you want to work faster, and obviously the marker flow won't keep up with the speed of your hand. And this is now not unique to these markers. Pretty much every single one of them would do the same. So I don't know if you can see it, because it's black, it's kind of hard to see, but if I kind of tilt it like this, you can see how there's some areas that are shinier and some areas that are more matte. If it was color, you could actually see streaks. So there's definitely streaks there on the first layer. Now I'm going to try, it's going to be just, kind of a second for you. I am going to take 10-15 minutes, put another layer down, and then we'll have a look how it how it shows itself with 2 layers of the same marker. Will these streaks disappear? Will you get nice and flat result? Here I am back now with second layer done, and as you can see, the second layer gave us pretty glossy finish. So to me this is very comparable to GuangNa finish. Let me find which one. These ones also give fairly kind of a, in 2 layers, give this fairly glossy finish like this. Please take into account the fact that you do need to do 2 to 3 layers depending on the color. This was a dark color, so this is 2 layers. And also the fact that they go down really wet helps, especially if you're doing the second layer, because there's no paper absorbency anymore, and because it goes down pretty wet, it really gives a nice easy application. Like, it goes down really smoothly. It's very very easy, very pleasant to put the second layer down, because if for some slightly drier ones, the second layer, all the layers can be a bit of a struggle if it's a bigger area, because it gets kind of drier and drier. This one now gave me nice kind of a consistently wet output throughout this second layer. But first layer, if you just put 1 layer down, you can see the difference here, how this is glossy. With 1 layer, if working in tighter areas, you also get a opaque finish, but you get this kind of a between matte and satin finish, which you can still probably get some pencil onto. So let's put some color down differently now as well. So okay, we're taking the yellow, taking my trusty water brush, and in this instance I'm going to be working off the tip, because I'm putting some bases down here, how it's going to go down. And to me, there's no surprises here. It goes down nicely. This paper takes water pretty well. It's definitely not watercolor paper, but with acrylic paint, things are a bit more forgiving, even if you use the acrylic paint that is, like this, you're picking up from the tip of the acrylic marker. And this is one really nice and easy way to put down base for your image. And I usually use several colors, so I already do kind of color variations in these washes. Or, you can let this dry and put on top something else. But I would pretty much do all that area, for example, at the moment yellow, and then add some color variations or different color stripes or maybe metallic paint or whatnot onto this surface later. But, I have kind of a guiding color down already.
You might ask why I am putting down here acrylic marker instead of, let's say, just watercolor or water-based marker. And one of the reasons is that this gives me a waterproof base. Once it dries, it won't move anymore. And I can add, as many layers of different washes, acrylic washes for different color variations on top of it as I want, which makes it a really versatile base, because since I'm adding it as liquid as that, I am also not getting this kind of a shiny base that the pencils won't coat up. Putting down it like this pencil, you get pretty kind of a almost rougher surface than the regular paper would be. You get more tooth because that kind of bangs up the paper fibers a bit. So you can get pencils on top of it pretty easily. Even, I would consider kind of a harder pencils on top of it somewhat. And if you want to create color variations, the best way to do it, to kind of, let's say you want some extra color on top of that yellow star burst there, some oranges or whatever, the best way to do it is to actually wait until it's dry and then add, a little bit of a, color variation here and there, and this way you won't, totally kill the paper. Because if your paper is already wet, especially, because it's not a watercolor paper, you shouldn't really go over it several times with the brush. I actually am, you can see they're kind of breaking my own rules slightly. There was a stain there, so I'm kind of fixing it. Because, I am actually going over some areas that are already wet several times, and I did pay for it. I did get some pilling. But if you don't do that, if you just put them down in layers, soft layers, then you don't get pilling. And you can just, keep adding layers after it dries. Or you can just use the heat gun or hair dryer to dry it. And the next thing I am going to do now is, after I add those bits into the cheeks, as you could see, sometimes I add direct from the marker, sometimes I pick it up with a water brush. I'm adding some extra yellow there, which I should have actually waited until it was dry and done it then, but rules are for breaking. Okay, here you can see I'm just putting down directly onto the paper, the marker, and washing it out. You need to be pretty fast if you do that, otherwise you end up with marker drying too fast, or you have to scrub too much and you get a lot of pilling. So you're better off, pretty much, I should have pretty much not done two areas together. I should have just done one area and washed it out then.
So this is how I would do a lot of clouds. I would just, keep adding them in different areas, and, wherever, like, for example, here I put blue, so behind it, I'm going to put purple, and I'm going to wash it out. And there's going to be also big areas where I metallic paint, like, for example, this swirl probably is going to be metallic paint, and so on. So, and maybe here on this cloud top I put pink. This is how I do the color variations in the background here. And it goes, you know, especially if you're not in front of camera and, you know, you don't think, it kind of becomes pretty fast, you know, you kind of keep putting colors on as you go, without really eventually thinking much about it, just making sure that, you know, here we have blue, so in front of here, and that's going to be metallic, but if something was touching it, I would put either pink or purple next to it, so, you know, it would just constantly have variations. And then there's a choice afterwards, you know, if I will put some pencils, bit of shading on there as well, or maybe, you know, I just leave it as is, kind of soft like this, and do outlines with gel pens and some decorations with possibly like glitter gel pens or stickles, or, you know, sparkly stuff. Okay, so that's about it for time being. It's quite late here now. I really shouldn't be blabbering anymore because people are going to sleep. So you saw, you know, what I was doing here. Nothing more to see there. So what do I think of this little set? Let me pull it aside a bit so you can see the full set as it was. So what do I think? It's nice. I think the markers are of good quality. But not hugely now different than most of them. Like pretty much, you know, they're all essentially, you know, more or less the same thing. They do remind me a little bit of these. These are also quite wet, and also, you know, the first layer goes down pretty patchy, and because they're pretty wet, the second layer goes on very easily, kind of nice and wet and smooth. And then the second layer, it's nice and opaque, and also a bit shiny, but this one, I think the finish is glossier. So if you like glossier finish, these ones are yours. The color palette is, of course, limited, and is even more limited by the fact that there's 3 whites, 3 blacks. So this is something, you know, if you are looking for something, you don't want to overclutter your craft room, and you want something small and contained, something you can throw into your bag with a water brush and, you know, go out, then this set is really nice for it, because it is small. It is like nice and small and very contained. I know that my daughter loves this set. I know that I won't this will become hers, I suspect. Whether I planned it or not, but I'd say, yeah, that she's going to confiscate that, you know, mostly because, you know, she doesn't like, unlike me, she prefers kind of a more limited color palette. She prefers smaller sets. Bigger sets just kind of confuse her with loads of colors. She likes kind of mixing and creating things, kind of a color blotches. So this set will be perfect for her. What I think, you know, who is that set for? Well, I would not recommend it really for people who are doing color by numbers, because this palette, obviously, most of books will need bigger palette than that, unless it's one of those, you know, kind of very simplified color by number books, which has, you know, fairly limited color palette. But most of them, you need more colors than here, because there's essentially 44 colors, not 48 here, okay? And of those 44, also, you know, you know, there's one is black and one is white. So essentially, if colors go, there's 42 colors. If you are a person who does that style, you know, of a shading or basing, or, washing out markers and mixing them on paper, because once it dries I can apply a little bit of yellow here or there or different colors and get even more depth. Then this set is all right for you. You don't really need very big set. Or if you are a person who likes to take something like that with you, with a small coloring book and a water brush, then this would work for you. And also I think it's a nice present for a teen, because they are they're just neatly packaged, it's it looks nice. And it feels good quality, both markers and the case and the packaging, it's nicely thought through. So it is a good present for a teen, especially, especially teen, slightly art-minded, and who might take it also, out or a school or whatever. Yeah, this would be a good set. So, there's nothing groundbreaking about this set, but I wasn't really expecting anything groundbreaking. It's a good quality, very limited palette as far as, regular colorists. We love our palettes to be big and wide. It has genuinely, it feels nice, but, I can't really recommend it, buy it over something else. I think they're all very similar. It all depends on what you're looking for, what do you prefer. As I said, very glossy finish if you prefer that, and if you need a small contained set to throw into your handbag or backpack when you go out, yeah, that's perfectly fine for you. If you need a bigger palette, don't get it, and so on. So yeah, they're good quality, but absolutely, if you have any of these, or even these, or GuangNa ones, do you need it? No. So you don't have to get it. But yeah, they're nice. And if your teen is looking for something like that to try out, if they like it or not, then yeah, this is a nice and fairly decently priced little thing to pack and stick under the tree, or birthday present or whatnot. Okay, so that's it. That's all, I think. I repeated myself several times there because I'm getting a bit droopy myself, and it is late in the evening, so sorry about this. Hopefully, it was useful for you, in case you were wondering about this set, what it's like, or what it's, who it's for. Maybe there was some useful information for you there. So have a wonderful morning or evening or afternoon, whatever the time is in your corner of the world. Try and find some time for yourself, some creative time, or just some time to relax and do whatever you enjoy doing. My best wishes for everybody here. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully you'll be back again soon. So, bye-bye.